Oh, good. It worked. I've been having trouble with YouTube this morning, which is really weird. Sometimes YouTube just doesn't want to work. Okay, I actually kind of feel like myself today, which is nice. Oh my gosh. Like I have had the brain fog like you would not believe. And every day it's just been a struggle. Like I know I've said it a million times that I need to get off of it, but protect yourself from the nightmare that is this COVID strain. Like I still feel like I have been like hitting the head with a bat when early in the morning. Like I'm still my poor dog. I don't know if I shared this with you guys, but my poor dog, we got him vaccinated against Bordetella before we went on our trip to Chattanooga. And apparently we didn't get him vaccinated quickly enough because he has Bordetella, right? He got it when he was bored. It's nobody's fault, right? It's nothing that anybody could have prevented. So I'm not putting anybody on blast. The poor thing is like a little bicycle horn following me around everywhere I go. He's like, and I'm just like, buddy. He's at a picture of him in the thumbnail, like sort of worming his way under blankets to just kind of hide while he honks. He's just throwing up everywhere. It's so sad. Like he just has the really sick eyes as he just looks at us like it's awful. We're hoping he'll feel better soon. Anyway, let's talk about business, and by business, of course, I mean my amazing Spider-Man shirt. This is the Spider-Man imposter meme where they're all pointing at each other and accusing each other of being the bad guy, and they all look exactly the same. Great stuff. They released Street Fighter 2 shirts yesterday, and I'm like, I need a Street Fighter 2 shirt, and I'm just like, my blown through my fun money. Life's not fair sometimes, you know. Anyway, so let's actually talk about ending this dang semester. First and foremost, I'm cutting down the page number for the final assignment because I got to give myself a break. I'm no longer requiring 6 pages. You can now do 4 pages. If you've written 6 pages, congratulations, you got yourself some bonus credit. Okay. So I'm doing that because I still most of the time feel like a bug on a windshield. So I'm trying to give myself a break. I figured I'd give you guys a break as well. Now, what I really want to do is stop with the lectures, which, you know, they've all just kind of sort of been phoned in anyway for a while because of the sickness. I want to focus very much on just grading the final paper, getting it up to where I want it to be, but I have a few points I want to make today. The Works Cited page is extremely important. And the only reason I'm putting this much emphasis on the Works Cited page is because there's like a whole standard in the course standards that talks about doing bibliographic entries. What I'm going to do, and I don't know, I've thrown a lot of old videos at you the past couple of weeks, and I don't want to go back and watch all of them to make sure I covered this ground. But I'm not 100% certain if I gave you an actual guide on how to cite sources in text. So let's go ahead and get this out of the way today. I'm going to link you to a website called Citation Machine. Now, let's actually just kind of talk for a few minutes about what works cited pages are, what they do, and how to make it easier for yourself to write them. Because believe it or not, there's a lot of kind of interesting politics behind this. The world is really changing a lot in regards to how we teach writing a citation because the needs have kind of changed. And it's been a while since I've worn my nerd hat, but let me actually explain to you what this is and why we do it. Most students, when they come into English 1010 or English 1101, and we start writing bibliographic entries, the main assumption about a works cited page or a bibliography is that it's supposed to kind of be like an anti-plagiarism major. Like, if you don't want to get accused of plagiarism, you have to do your works cited page. And like, there is truth to that, right? Giving credit to your sources, listing your sources does protect you against accusations of plagiarism. But in reality, the actual function of the works cited page is a lot more dynamic than that. And I do kind of like to talk about this because oftentimes, students ask, why are we doing this? And for English 1010, it's a little archaic, right? It's not something that you guys are necessarily going to encounter a lot within your professional lives. You're not going to have to be doing bibliographic citations and stuff like that. But here's the basic explanation. Works cited pages and bibliographies give a great deal of information. You've seen these before, probably, where you've got like the author's last name, author's first name. There's like a comma between those. You have the title of the article or the book. You have the date of publication. You have the publisher, right? That's like a very basic citation for a book. Now, why do we need all that information? Well, it's I learned not too long ago. This is actually kind of interesting. When we participate in a conversation on a subject, and we are talking about a topic that has been ongoing and has kind of a lot of development, where writers have kind of sort of referenced each other, and we've talked about major ideas. We want to be able to find the material that we're referencing, so that if we want to make a comment on a subject, we know we're dealing with the same version of that material that the person was referencing, right? So the funny thing is this used to be a lot more of a problem back in the day when people were using actual books or printed articles in journals that you would have to go and find, right? We have some kind of interesting issues within academia right now, because it's becoming more and more the case that this isn't a problem anymore. But think about this for a minute. So somebody writes a book about, I don't know, fashion, right? We're talking about fashion theory, and we look up this book and we're talking about it, and we decide we want to disagree with this author, or we decide we want to suggest another idea. Believe it or not, different versions and different printings of that book may exist. And those different printings, those different editions can vary wildly from each other. So that, one of the first things that we do when we are referencing a work, if we're using a physical book, is we talk about the page numbers we're on, right? We have a little parenthesis outside of the text where we're putting our quotes and stuff in, and there's like a page number, right? And that exists to help the people reading your article or your writing find the spot you're referencing. Now, there are different editions, there are different volumes of books, but there actually used to be several other layers of complexity here. I know I'm really wearing my nerd hat right now, but just bear with me for a minute, because I find this absolutely fascinating. Used to be that if you published a book somewhere and it was printed in, let's say, Boston, but then it was circulated out in California and it was printed in LA, you're actually talking about two different printing presses, right? And those different printing presses might paginate the book differently. So the page numbers could be wildly off. So if I'm talking about a page of a book, and I'm not giving you the information about the publisher and where it was printed, that could be extremely confusing. And this was a pretty common problem, because different publishers may commission a different person to write an introduction, or it can handle all sorts of different issues separately. This is why when we get into the discussion of works cited pages, we actually get kind of, and I hate this word, but we get kind of anal retentive about it, right? We get extremely picky with the way that the information is being conveyed. Now, this is extremely annoying. And it was extremely annoying for me when I was in grad school, because believe it or not, I'm old enough that most of the time it was easier to use physical copy books when I was writing my own graduate thesis. I wrote this big fat book about Dylan Thomas. I need to get a copy of it. I don't have a copy of my own book that I wrote. But in any case, I would use physical books, because at that point, the way that we formatted the citations for online sources, you have no idea how complicated that was. It was a nightmare to cite stuff that you got off of Galileo. Because Galileo at that point was still kind of young. And so the trick that we were all pulling was, rather than cite it off of Galileo, this was before Galileo actually gave you bibliographic citations to use. We would actually go to the library, go to the librarian, and get a physical copy of whatever it was we found on Galileo, just so it would be easier to cite it. This used to be really difficult. And looking back on it, I feel really old when I talk about this, because I graduated from Georgia Southern University with my master's in 2008. We live in a really different world right now. And the actual requirements for the way we do works cited pages have really, really changed. Now, the point I'm trying to make here is, we have this works cited structure. There are reasons that it exists that goes beyond the, you need to show me you're not cheating. There's a function to this. And the information that you convey could be extremely useful for someone who's doing complicated research. The strange thing is, as I've taught these classes, the works cited page is something that's a lot more vital for someone who's going into, like, collegiate studies of theory, who's going to be doing lots and lots of research. So when I get English 1010 students who really are kind of just like trying to get their vocational, skills in order, this isn't necessarily something that's going to make or break your career, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense to invest like hours and hours in time into the research process, but the state still says we have to do it, right? We still have to discuss this. Now, the main thing I want you to take away from this is that these things are a pain in the butt to write. So that, like, in the actual complexity of writing these works cited lists, the reason they're so complex is simply because academics are just weird and strange. Every discipline has their own way of doing this. English, literature, humanities is a modern language association. Modern language association really dictates how your paper should look. And it really determines the way that you write your works cited page. That's all MLA is. I've got lots of students who really just have no familiarity with MLA. It really is just the instructions that you use to format your paper. What I'm going to do, and I find this to be the easiest way to accomplish this, for this paper, I'm going to attach to the video an MLA works cited paper. It's a sample paper. I completely bungled that up. Shut up. I'm still not feeling 100%. I'm going to attach an MLA sample paper. It shows you what the paper should look like. It's a really easy way of seeing how it appears on the page and how it should kind of behave, how it should be formatted. I found students really, it makes a lot more sense to follow the template than it is to actually slow down and talk about all of the things like, you need to put it in these margins. You need to use this type of capitalization. You need to, if you look at the thing, it's a lot easier to approximate what it's doing rather than actually discussing the instructions for formatting an MLA paper. For the research paper, it needs to look like this MLA sample paper. Now, when we get to the works cited page, the main bit of advice I would give you is, if you're using an actual book to cite on your paper, if you found an actual book, contact me. It's easy, but it requires a little bit more legwork. If you are using Galileo, you are golden, because Galileo literally gives you the works cited citation so that you can just copy and paste it straight in your paper. And that is fine. I have a lot of students who are like, Mr. Bailey, I copied and pasted a citation into my works cited page. Is that plagiarism? I'm like, no, they gave you that citation to use. So it's one of the best incentives for using Galileo, because you've already got the citation provided when you find the article, right? It's extremely useful. For stuff that you find in the wild on the internet, which I'm going to guess is mostly what you guys have done, because who has time to actually find and read a book these days? That's really something that you have to do when you are doing complicated research stuff, right? Most of us are using the internet. We're using Galileo. I'm attaching to this video citation machine. Now, let me also warn you on this because there's a bit of a complicated sort of like throw. You have to pay to use APA, which is American Psychological Association. That's how you cite papers in a psychology class. You have to pay to use Turabian. If you are ever in a class where the professor is requiring to use Turabian to format your paper, run for your life. I'm someone who's kind of an expert in this stuff, and I have nightmares about Turabian. It's awful. But the thing is, MLA is usually free on these websites I'm going to provide you, Citation Machine. You can literally just take the link of the website that you're using, plug it into Citation Machine, bam, there it is. So what do you do when you get into your psychology class and you can't use that citation bar? You have two options. You could pay, which I wouldn't recommend because who has extra money these days? Like, have you seen how expensive it is to buy a bag of chips? Like, I bought Pringles the other day and I was like, I'm going to have to take out a mortgage on my house for this crap. But I'm sorry. Anyway, you can pay to auto cite and use Citation Machine. You also can find a style guide online. And this is a miserable thing, but I'm going to link it to you so you can see it. There's a website online that I highly recommend you take a look at because it will help you do this. It's called owl.English Purdue. This has been a formatting writing Bible for as long as I can remember. People went to OWL, the online writing lab, in order to help format their papers. OWL has an APA guide that you can read that actually gives you the ins and outs on how to format a citation. I don't want to make you do that for this class because I'm not 100% certain it's going to be the most necessary thing, but I am going to provide you the link so you're aware of it. OWL gives you all of the instructions, but the problem is you have to do it yourself. You literally have to look at the templates, find the author's name, find the publication, find the date, all that information that's kind of going to be scattered all over the source. And then you have to put the citation together yourself. Now, again, I'm going to sound like a little bit of an old man here. That's what we had to do when I was in graduate school. I had to go and I had to find all that information. And of course, for the most part, most publications don't provide easy access citations that you could just sort of copy and paste and put in your Works Cited page. You kind of have to hoof it. You got to go and find that information yourself. It was probably the most tedious and aggravating part of graduate school. I don't want you guys to do that, but I feel content letting you know that that's the world that waits for you when you start going to get your associate's degree, when you get your bachelor's degree, when you get your master's degree. That's like one of the big things you have to kind of wrangle with when that's when you go down that path. So I'm giving you the tools. I'm giving you the sample paper. I'm giving you owl.English Purdue, and I'm also giving you Citation Machine. Using those tools, you should be able to put this citation page together, a Works Cited page. This is essential. If you don't have a functioning Works Cited page at the back of your paper, you're going to lose a lot of points. I'm not going to fail you for it, but you're not going to get an A either, okay? So it's extremely important on this research paper that you format a good Works Cited page. As obvious as it seems to just put hyperlinks at the end of it, to just link what you used for research, that is not what you are supposed to do. I always have students who just sort of click the link, just kind of copy and paste the links at the end of the paper. I'm going to hurt you for doing that. Do not do that. Write an actual citation. Look through these sources, and you should get a pretty good idea of what these citations look like and how to create them, okay? Do not just post links. In a nicer, prettier, more just world, you could get away with that, but we are not in that world yet, right? If we're looking to actually share sources, the ones we specifically used, like to, share and have a conversation, hyperlinks make all the sense in the world, but not in formal writing. We need those citations. Okay. Anyway, I think that's all for today. I might check in with you guys again on Monday, just as like a little announcement. We're having our team session today. Mainly, I just want to focus on getting these drafts done. 4 pages now, not 6. I'm ready for the semester to be over. It has nothing to do with you guys. It just has to do with how difficult the last few weeks have been. Hope things are going well, and let's get these drafts in. Let's try to get them in kind of early so that I can start grading and putting stuff away. And I will have the proposals graded in the next day or so. Thank you, and I hope you guys are all doing awesome.